Hello, everyone. My name is Samar Kamal. I am the head of growth and marketing here at Arch. I will also be the host today for this amazing session. Thank you for joining us today. It will be an amazing session. I cannot wait to dive into the conversation today and the panelists here. We have yet another case study with a customer sharing how they use Arch and all the challenges that they had and how they solved them with Arch. Before diving into the conversation, though, I wanted to give you a little bit of background about Arch. If you're not familiar, Arch really started as Meltano, the famously data movement, data integration tool used by hundreds, if not thousands of applications and companies out there, from Fortune 500 companies to even small and mid-sized businesses. The community is very strong. We have more than 5,000 people in our Slack channel building integrations every day, hundreds of them. Thank you for everyone involved with that. A little bit about the history of Arch and Meltano. The company was incubated and started at GitLab, the cloud security company, for years before rolling it out and becoming an independent company. We are backed by incredible investors such as Google Ventures, Venrock, and others. A little bit about the offering and really what our solutions, and really we think about it as a solution more than a product because it involves the platform, the tools, but also the people if needed be. What we find out is a lot of companies out there, especially smaller businesses, do not have the capabilities or the resources to have a full-on data team. And so with that, we also provide the data expertise, from our team to help you get up and running. And speaking of that, our offering, really, we like to think about it as meeting where the customer is at. For example, as you can see from my screen, with data ops, the first tier and pillar of our solution, that is really the data integration, the centralization. We connect with all these connectors that we have to every bit of your business, ensuring that we have full idea and connection into everywhere where that data is coming from. Comes after that is Arch Analytics, ensuring that once we have all that data, you're able to classifying it and transforming it to become metrics and KPIs and extracting that insight that is needed for the business. On top of that, ultimately with AI and what we refer to as Arch Intelligence, all that generative and predictive capabilities that throughout this journey, we are working on basically having AI become an Arch, become your sidekick or your virtual data expert that you can always tap on and help you get the data and the insight that you need as fast as possible. I'm sure that Taylor here will also dive into that in a little bit and explain more of what we mean with that. But first and foremost, before that, I'd love to introduce our guest speaker and our customer, Tim Raiswell. Hey, Tim.
Hey, guys. Nice to meet you.
Nice meeting you. Tim, if you could give us a little bit of background about yourself and this amazing journey that you've had.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Tim Raiswell. I am the managing director, co-founder of a firm called Loftus Labs. We are based in Yakima, Washington, which is in central Washington state. And we serve agribusiness, so agricultural organizations right across the value chain, largely in specialty crops, so crops like hops and apples and blueberries. And we serve them with what we call decision tools. So we're in the business analytics space. So we're helping senior decision makers in those organizations use data to make better decisions.
Very good. Thank you so much, Tim. We'll dive into that more in a little bit. But before that, Taylor, if you could give us a little bit of background about yourself and the company.
Absolutely. So Tim, thanks for joining us. So my background is in chemical engineering, but has spent the past 15 years in data, leading data teams from small organizations up to 1,000 plus people organizations. And kind of our mission with Arch and the whole genesis of this company is bringing the best outcomes of data teams to more and more organizations. And over the years, we've worked with a number of companies and have continued to build the product such that we can reach and bring these great data outcomes to more companies who may not be able to afford the massive data teams of a lot of these organizations. So happy to be partnered with Loftus in their data journey.
Awesome. Thanks, Taylor. Taylor, if you could dive really quick a little bit about the inspiration. You've been in data, you've worked for big companies, small companies. What's really the inspiration now and the focus of the company recently?
Yeah, so for us, it's about leaning into where the future of generative AI and AI in general is going. The foundation that we've built with Arch is built from the core of Meltano, this great tool for moving data at scale, for transforming it at scale. And this mission of wanting to bring the best of data outcomes to more companies, I think is accelerated by what generative AI has to offer. And what we've been working to do is bring the best of AI on top of our platform so that you can have an always-on analyst and also someone who is able to go out and with AI agents build on the data platform behind the scenes. We're early in this journey, and we are excited to partner with great folks like Loftus and some of our other customers on building out this capability. But the goal again is to be able to bring the best of these great data outcomes to more companies all over the world.
Awesome. Thank you. Tim, back to you, please. You're not just our customer. You're not just, acting as, the head of data at your company. You're the founder. Tell us a little bit, what led you to building Loftus Labs?
Yeah, so we, client number one for Loftus Labs was the company that owns us, which is Loftus Ranches. Loftus Ranches is a large hops and apple farm based in Yakima. And the kind of the data challenge in farming is that it's similar to other industries, although I think exaggerated in agriculture. There tends not to be a central IT function in a lot of agribusinesses that unifies like application roadmaps and the types of things you see in Fortune 500 companies. So while agriculture is digitized to a degree, it is kind of suffering from multiple point solutions, right? So the average large grower out here might have 30 or 40 different applications all throwing off data. But they can't unify that data. They can't bring that data together and answer tough questions like, how do I cut my labor cost for this particular block of land? Because that requires unifying labor data and maybe general ledger data, right? That is not an easy thing to do in any industry. But as I said, because there tends not to be a kind of unifying IT presence in a lot of these organizations, it is exaggerated in ag.
Got it. So how are you really changing that with Loftus, and making it easier, using Arch and, transforming that technology to your customers?
Yeah, so there are a couple of components, right? Like it is a lot of the organizations we work with do not have the budget for a quote unquote data team, right? Like to do a lot of this stuff effectively, you need some data engineering skill set to extract, transform, load the data into a central repository. You need some infrastructure expertise in terms of managing the thing, ongoing, break fix, and then you need some analytics expertise. And so the genesis of the company was, as I said, Loftus Ranches building this team and then initially selling the excess capacity of that team to other agribusinesses in the area. And we are continuing along that mission. Now, where Arch comes in and has been really helpful, I think of the challenge as somebody who manages a data team, right? There's a metric which is like time to insight, and you will always want to be reducing your time to insight because nobody cares that it's taking you another 2 or 3 weeks to build your ERP connector, right? Like that's the worst. That's where nobody wants to hear about kind of the travails of your data engineering team. And so where Arch has helped is it allows us to build something once and then scale it very quickly. And so if you look at the kind of the before and after of engineering team time spend, distribution of engineer time before and after Arch, much less time today spent on things like, fretting about infrastructure management, wondering about how we're going to deploy some code that we deployed on this infrastructure over here on this infrastructure. It's much more kind of templatized, and it allows us to focus on much more valuable components of the engineering role in particular, like the semantic layer, the business logic that is the magic in the data engineering portion of the work. Does that make sense?
It does, yeah. What made you really go with Arch, though? There are tons of tools that does a lot of this. What made us feel like this is the partner that I would like to go with?
Yeah, good question. I think, first of all, Taylor's already kind of hinted at it. Meltano is a great kind of data engineering grammar. It's kind of like its own language when you kind of think about understanding and abstracting away a lot of the challenges with modern ETL and ELT. It's more flexible than, say, something like existing tools like Fivetran that are kind of come out of the box, but there's not a lot you can add with your own code. So we need some customization. But then Arch combines that with, it takes Meltano, it combines it with orchestration and the storage infrastructure, the warehousing as well, and just takes all of that work and moves it off our plate, right? And so we're focused on client outcomes, and Arch is helping us accomplish that.
Very good. Thanks so much, Tim. That's great to hear. Switching gears, Taylor, you've heard a lot from Tim. You talk to different industries, different folks, these nascent industries, that do not have, data expertise. Does it sound familiar to you? This is a unique problem, to few industries, or how large do you think this issue out there?
I think it's larger than a lot of data vendors and data practitioners give it credit for. When you're let's say you're a data analyst or a data engineer on an existing data team, it's very easy to think that this is kind of the standard for everybody, but it is it's actually quite rare to have a well-funded data team. If you do the numbers and write out like what is it actually going to cost to hire an experienced data engineer or even like a head of data to run this program, you're anywhere from $150,000, $250,000 all in for the labor for this one person. And then on top of that, there's additional cost for all of the tooling. And that is just prohibitively expensive for a lot of companies to say, I'm going to spend, $250,000 on our analytics program, when rightfully so, their gut goes, that just seems like too much. And I'm not sure of the ROI that I'm actually going to get on that. For me, having been on those teams, I know the value of what a great data team can provide, and that's an understanding of your business processes, what is happening on a day-to-day basis. And then to Tim's point, the integration of disparate data sources is where the real magic starts to happen. A lot of these SaaS tools are going to have their own set of charts and insights about their little bit of data, and maybe they're pulling in data from a couple of other different places. But when you're able to get it into a centralized warehouse that you can basically do whatever you need to do with it, and it's free form, the possibilities there are endless. And the way technology has just progressed, like those capabilities are now becoming commoditized. The data warehouse, data movement, transformation, all of that is kind of becoming commoditized. And there's just an opportunity now to bring, again, these great capabilities to more and more organizations. So I think if more business owners and operators, especially ones that are growing, have 50 plus people, and they're feeling like, I feel like I don't have a handle on my business, there are solutions out there that can help give that confidence and understanding of what's happening. And our view is that the data team is where that happens, but you don't have to go out and hire 5 people to actually make that a reality.
Got it. Very interesting. Thanks. Tim, so if I could take a lot of that and what Taylor mentioned, the balance of the tools, the people, the hiring, bringing a company with data expertise, I'll throw something else in there, AI and all these assistants that we hear about, that we use now every day. How do you even balance that? And what are your expectations, if you will, for now, for the next maybe year or so, that you can truly count on and say, these are tasks that I'm happy to outsource and rely on AI with?
Yeah, the AI question is interesting. I think, and Taylor and I have talked a little bit about this before. I think AI, in terms of generative AI and its role in data workflows, I think it could benefit from something like the scoring system that has evolved alongside like autonomous vehicles, right? Where you go from like an S0 to an S5, right? S0 is no autonomy and there's a human driving. So there's a data engineer doing the work on their own. And then S5 would be, there's a large language model manipulating all of the data themselves. I don't know where we are on that scale right now, maybe in terms of state of the art, maybe S2, S3. But I think it could benefit from that in terms of helping people like set expectations and understand that it is limited. I think of it as kind of like, where it, at least in terms of personal productivity, like right now, like the kind of Microsoft Copilots of the world and so on can get you to like 70-75% of a coding task fairly well. But that last 20-25% is difficult, and you see that in the autonomous car space as well, right? Like it's very hard to get to perfect automation. But I do see in ag as well, I do see benefits already, and I'm excited about some of the different capabilities of it. The first thing I really like is ag data tends to be unstructured, right? Mm-hmm. And so what AI is good at is applying structure at the point of you asking it a question. So I could take a couple thousand pages of unstructured notes, and when I ask a question of it, I'm applying that structure at the point that the question occurs to me. That's really exciting, because in the data engineering space, like all the way back to when, warehousing came along, and you had to come up with like the perfect architecture from like minute one, where you had to basically infer every question that was ever going to get asked about your data and build it into that structure. You don't have to do that anymore. So that's exciting. Second thing is, like, McKinsey used to have this construct in data processes, this idea of a translator role, where there's somebody who knows enough to be dangerous about data and its limitations, and also dangerous enough to know how the business runs and how it works. And this role kind of sits in between the two. It's like a translation layer where it translates the requirements of the business into requests and requirements for a data team, and vice versa. Like, it flows in both directions. AI can do some of that really well, right? And that's, transformer models are very good at translation. Like, that was the original use case. And so I'm excited about putting in the hands of somebody who doesn't know data the ability to sharpen the questions and make the requirements clearer, and directly query databases in this way. And then there's a third component that I've been thinking about recently, which is this change management. So important, right? If you build a dashboard and it tells somebody who's a tenured executive that they've been thinking about something in their business wrong, right? You see a lot of like rejection of data products, and a lot of kind of resistance to it. And so change management's always been part of the process. My hunch there is that if you give some of those people, those resistant people, the ability to query the data themselves live using natural language, you'll start to see some of those barriers break down, because they'll understand their limitations and the limitations of their questions much faster if they have access to it. There was a concept in BI that was sold hard about 5-10 years ago, which was like self-service, and it never really worked because for many reasons. We don't have enough time to go into it. But if AI can get us closer to true self-service, I think the change management part becomes easier as well.
Yeah, the trust component is so interesting, and that's what we want to try and solve, and that's why we're leaning in on this. It's a kind of a heavy services model where there are humans in the loop here, and humans that can kind of bridge that gap. Because to your point, like self-service, like one of the reasons I think it fails is you're just presented with results with no real context or connection to what the ground truth is. And I do think there's an opportunity where these AI that actually have access to all of the systems, and either have access or have some level of control over it, are able in their answers to say, hey, here's the generated chart. Also, here's the raw data that makes up that chart. Here are the sources that I pulled from. And you have all this metadata and information presented to you in an easy to see format, so that over time, and this is the thing that like AIs collaborating with humans is, AIs will be incredibly fast, but humans are going to be a little bit slower to trust. And so how do you, both in the user experience of using the AI, build that trust, and then in the auditability, traceability of what the results are, build trust in that. And then kind of to your point, like the change management of, okay, if this AI is going to change parts of the system, how do I validate that it's doing the right thing? That collaboration point, I think we're very interested in figuring out how to navigate that.
Any thoughts on that, Tim?
Yeah, I think so. We had this conversation, right, where there's a question of like when might it replace a data engineer, and
Mm-hmm.
I think that there's a timing question, there's a timeline question. Obviously, I think a lot about my world and how conversant decision makers in agribusiness are. I think in the near term, a lot of that trust is going to come through education. There's a concept called like the citizen data scientist, right? I think Gartner made it. My former employee made it famous, where there's a democratization not only of available data but data analysis, and so there are subject matter experts running their own analyses, and that's great. And I don't see that going away. In fact, I see it intensifying. Right? If you are to trust the AI, you need to understand the methodology that it is selected, and if it is running the right analyses. And that's good because it kind of raises the bar on general data education in an organization, which is perfect. And we certainly have a role to play there at Loftus Labs with helping our clients understand the limitations of their data and what's the art of the possible with their data. Back to the autonomous driving example, though, I do think we're away from like level 5 fully autonomous data engineering, and in the near term, at least, actually increases in demand for data engineers and people with that skill set as this type of technology becomes more prevalent and value added.
Yeah. I want to jump in there a little bit, because the autonomous driving example is very appropriate. Because if we're talking about taking a generic AI and throwing it at a bunch of like modern data stack tools and having it try and do that, like we are incredibly far from that. But our bet, and this is a bit of a bias for Arch, is that a fully integrated system that has everything already in place has a much better shot. So to kind of lean into the autonomous driving example, if you're have like a lot of off-the-shelf components and the engine doesn't really speak well to the wheels or like the different components, it's going to be much harder. But when you have kind of the all-in-one platform, in theory, that makes it easier for the AI to kind of touch all of these different components and accelerate that transformation. I think we're also making a bet too that we've seen great progress in these models, and they will continue to get smarter, maybe at different rates, and that the burden, the challenge of actually automating a lot of this stuff will start to come down. But we also want to be the home for those AI data engineers.
So Tyler, let's double click on that. We talk a lot about this, and how we see a lot of folks, obviously not just us, building and to have a data virtual assistant. And it seems like a lot of folks are attacking this from the bottom up, kind of building into trying to get to that data layer. How do you see us, kind of attacking this differently and trying to really, you talked about, kind of owning the whole stack. What do you mean by that, and how different do you think the solution will be?
Yeah, I think if we look at the history of kind of the modern cloud data era, a lot of explosion in different point solutions for different parts of the stack. We saw DBT come out, and then there were data quality tools, and then there's these metadata tools, and there's tools for each part of the stack. And they generally, like, you can assemble 7-8 of them together, and they work okay together. But in an era where interest rates have risen, people are trying to become more capital efficient. It starts to force people to ask the question, like, is this really useful? Am I getting my full utility out of this? And then you see the compression from the other side, where everybody sees what is happening with AI, and you're saying, well, if I can get pretty good answers with a pretty good AI, do I need all of these other tools? And so you kind of have compression from both sides of, I don't want to spend all this money for these different tools. And it seems like there's something happening over here with AI. So we've taken the approach of, we do kind of have a bottom-up approach where we have this fantastic data operations platform end to end, that folks like Loftus are using to scale to their clients. And then on top of that, we now have the foundation that's necessary to actually have really good AI and human collaboration, because we're not going off into 4 different tools whenever we need to do some work for our clients. It's all in the same tool. We built and manage both the platform and the analyses that are coming out of it for folks. And so the collaboration is much tighter, and we can be much more cost efficient as well. So the all-in-one solutions, like, and there's conversations of bundling versus unbundling. I think the pendulum is swinging back towards, hey, we've learned a lot from all of these point solutions. Let's take these best practices, put them into a cost-effective solution that can now leverage the best of what state-of-the-art AI has to offer.
Mm-hmm. Very interesting. Very cool. Well, thank you both for making my job easy and continuing this conversation, making it as thoughtful as possible. Tim, thank you so much for joining us today. We're honored to have you as a customer and for this great partnership that we have with you.
Yeah, thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. If you have any questions or anything you'd like to discuss, happy to contact and speak with you, sales@arch.dev, if you would like to do so. Thank you. Have a great day.